no mercy, not my people, but now you have obtained mercy. Now, this fulfills Hosea. Now you are called my people. Now you are Ami. Now through the blood of Yeshua, the Jewish Messiah, now we are bringing all of us back together. And the jealousy and the hostility and the dividing walls and all of this should be down. It just should be down. We should be fully embracing each other. And I do not believe even it's a question of Jew and Gentile. I believe it's which tribe. Which I don't even think is our business. We don't need to know. But I do believe there are a lot of Israelites running around there that don't know and they don't understand why they have this in their hearts. It's because they've been grafted in through the blood of Yeshua, and it's like coming back home. I want to just touch on this blessing a little bit. We did say this blessing over Timothy at his bar mitzvah, and I believe that the blessing of the Father is very important. If we can get a hold of this, the patriarchal blessing of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, those were very real. Blessings and curses were very, very real. And they had real power. And I believe that what a father speaks, or a mother, speaks over their children is very powerful. We can speak blessings over them, or we can, by our words, also speak curses over them. When we speak what we see, if we see something in them that we don't like, and we speak that over them, that can bring wrong things into their life. And I believe that, even though Jacob, he had such a hard life, he really did. Look at the thing he went through with Dinah, his daughter being raped, and then the whole ordeal with Shechem and his sons that deceived them and killed them, and everything that he went through, thinking that he had lost Joseph and everything, and he died blessing. He died with a blessing on his lips, and I hope that can be the case for all of us, that we, no matter what we go through in this life, we will die blessing. Okay, let's keep going. All right, then we have that Yaakov dies in Egypt, but he does ask Joseph, he says, promise me you will take my body back to the land of Israel. And he did. Joseph did keep his promise. And I think there is always this longing. There's always the longing, no matter where we are, no matter where we live, there's always the longing to go back to the land. Then we have this is kind of interesting, because after Jacob dies, now the sons are scared, okay? Now Joseph's brothers are scared, and it shows what a guilty conscience is a terrible thing. We could do something and it stays with us, and we always live with this fear, somebody's going to find out or something bad will happen to us, because of it. And in Genesis 50, verse 21, now they're saying, Dad told us to tell you that you should forgive us. Before Father died, he said, they're scared. They started to be scared. Now that Father's gone, Joseph, here he is in a position of power, and we know what we did to him. And so they say, now please forgive us. Forgive us for what we did. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him like that. I believe that he had in his heart, it was like, what more do you want me to do to show you that I've forgiven you? He took care of them. He provided for them. He took them in. And it's almost like, why don't you believe me that I have forgiven you? And there is such a correlation between Joseph and Yeshua, between Joseph and Jesus. And I believe that also, when Yeshua has forgiven us, when he says he's forgiven us through his sacrifice, I don't believe that we need to keep coming in fear. I believe that would even grieve his heart, because he has what more? Or, what more does God have to do to show us that he loves us? Sometimes, we go through something, we're sick, or we go through something hard, and it's like, God, don't you even love me? And how that must grieve the heart of God. What more do you want me to do? I have sacrificed my only son for you. I've given the best that I have. I've given everything that I have. What more do I need to do to show you that I forgive you and I love you? And then Joseph, the amazing thing, after everything that Joseph went through, he says, fear not, this is in 50:19, fear not, for am I in the place of God? In other words, what is he saying here? He is saying, vengeance is not mine. Vengeance belongs to God. And I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind, not just once, but like daily. Because every day there are opportunities to be offended. Every day. And Joseph is saying, am I in the place of God? When we try to take revenge ourselves in any way, we are putting ourselves in the place of God, because God is the true judge. God is the perfect judge, and he's the only one who can perfectly judge this situation. And then he says, and as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it to pass, to save many people alive. He was not minimizing. This whole thing is about forgiveness. And he was not minimizing what these guys did to him. He didn't say, oh, I know you didn't really mean it when you threw me into that pit and sold me as a slave. He was not in any way trying to minimize what these brothers did to him. He just tells it, like, you meant evil against me. And I think that when people sin against us, it doesn't help to try and minimize it, or to say, well, I guess it wasn't really that bad, or maybe they really didn't mean it, because maybe it was that bad, and maybe they did mean it. People can be really cruel. People can be really mean, and they can be really dumb. And they can do all kinds of stuff. And we don't need to try and deny it. Oh, no. Yes, they meant, and a lot of times people don't mean evil by it, but sometimes they do. And we can just say, yes, you meant it for evil, but the thing is that God can turn anything for good. He says, God works all things for good to those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. Do we love God? Has he called us? Then we can trust that whatever happens to us, God is going to work for good. And not stay angry and not carry a grudge. In fact, what Joseph did is he comforted his brothers. He said, fear not. I will sustain you and your little ones. And he comforted them, and he spoke kindly to them. He did the opposite. It says, do not return evil for evil, but instead return blessing. And this is exactly what Joseph did. Instead of taking the revenge that he could have on his brothers, he spoke kindly to them. He comforted them. He returned a blessing. Now, how hard is that for us to do sometimes? What kinds of things do we do when somebody hurts us? Maybe don't speak to them for a while. Maybe yell at them. Maybe do something bad. I mean, I used to sometimes, I'm sure when I was like way more carnal, right? Used to sometimes, rip the buttons off somebody's shirt that I'm supposed to be sewing about, just so angry with them, And it's like, I'm not going to sew this button on. You rip a couple more off, or whoops, the scissors slipped, Oh dear, isn't that too bad? Whatever. I mean, we have all kinds of ways, don't we? To get back at somebody, right? I mean, it's so fun because I know that I was going to come here today and talk about forgiveness, and two things happened just this morning that really hurt my feelings, really hurt me, and I had an opportunity to take offense. I had an opportunity to be hurt and to stay in offense, and I had to let it go and to say, I forgive. Now, it doesn't always mean that we feel like it, but we must forgive. This is so important. I just believe this is so important, because what does our salvation depend on? God's forgiveness, right? We are saved from hell and from death because God forgives our sins, right? Not because we're good, not because we've done enough mitzvot or enough, commandments, enough good deeds, we've given enough to charity. We're saved through the blood of the Lamb, and because God forgives us through the blood of the Lamb. But what is it? Yeshua told us, if you will not forgive your brother from your heart, God will not forgive you. That is an amazing statement, isn't it? It means that our salvation depends on us walking in forgiveness towards everyone. If we have any unforgiveness towards anyone, how can God forgive us if we will not forgive someone else, no matter what they've done? You know, and I heard this somewhere. There are 3 kinds of pits that we can fall into, and all of them require forgiveness. Okay? Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers. He had to forgive his brothers, right? So there's 3 kinds of pits. There's the one that we are pushed into by somebody else. We have to forgive them. There's the one that we just happen to fall into. And then I believe that we really need to forgive God, even though he hasn't done anything wrong, but we need to make sure that we're not holding any kind of resentment or unforgiveness towards God, because after all, he's in control of everything, and he allowed this to happen, whatever it is. All right? We need to make sure that we are not holding any bitterness or unforgiveness towards God. And then there's the pit that we jump into ourselves. Bad choices, poor decisions, disobedience, whatever it is. We've jumped in, now we're in the pit. We need to forgive ourselves. And sometimes I think that's the hardest thing to do, is to forgive ourselves. We can forgive everybody else. But every time that we have difficulty because we jumped into this pit, we think, why did I do this? And then we have to forgive ourselves. We cannot keep holding ourselves hostage over the things that we have done, the poor choices and poor decisions we've made. All right? So forgiveness is absolutely key. And then, in the end, Joseph dies. And this ends the book of Genesis, which is Bereshit in Hebrew. And at the very end of each one of the books of the Torah is this word, chazak. And chazak means strong. And this is at the end of every one of the books of the Torah. When you finish reading it, is an encouragement to be strengthened. Just be strengthened in the Lord through the reading of his word. I just want to show you some of the correlations between Joseph and Yeshua. Some of these I had thought of, and some of them came as new things to me that I never thought of that. But look how parallel they are. All right? Both of them were their father's special sons. God said, this is my son, my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased. And Joseph was his father's special beloved son. He was his favorite. They were both shepherds of their father's sheep. Joseph was the shepherd of the sheep, and also Yeshua says, I am the good shepherd. They were both sent by their father to their brothers. God the Father sent Yeshua to his brethren, and Joseph was sent to his brothers. They were both hated by their brothers. Others plotted to harm them. They were both tempted. Yeshua was tempted in the wilderness, in the desert, by the enemy, and Joseph was tempted by Potiphar's wife. They both went through temptation, and they overcame that. They didn't sin. They were both taken to Egypt. Joseph taken to Egypt as a slave, Yeshua taken as a baby by his father to escape from the danger from Herod. And next one. And look at this. They both had their robes taken from them. We know that when Yeshua was crucified, that his robe was taken away, and they drew lots over who would have his robe. Joseph's robe was taken away from him, his special coat of many colors. They were both sold for the price of a slave. They were both bound in chains. They were both falsely accused. And look at this. They were both placed with 2 prisoners, one who was saved and one who was lost. Right? Joseph in prison, one of the prisoners, right? The two that they both had, there was the 2 dreams when he was in prison. Remember? And then they forgot him. Now the one was executed and the other one was restored back to the king. Yeah. And the same with Yeshua, was between 2 prisoners, and one said, remember me, and he said, this day you'll be with me in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, and the other one was lost. And they were both 30 years old at the beginning of their public ministry or public recognition. They were both exalted after going through suffering. They both forgave those who wronged them. They both saved their nation.